Hello, intrepid adventurers! If you're any fan of D&D at all, you'll probably be very familiar with that term. If not, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, or you think that D&D is a game where a bunch of sweaty, antisocial nerds get together, and instead of going to therapy, they roleplay. And I'm going to actually tell you today how D&D is super cool, and how I kind of got into it, and its growth into the mainstream as of late, so yeah. So if you don't know, D&D is a tabletop role-playing game where it's basically just a game of yes and improv with dice rolls involved. And my first taste of it was back in high school, where I joined mid-campaign as a pirate elven prince, and my DM, who had invited me to the game, had told me that if I wanted to get into it more, to check out this thing called Critical Role, where a bunch of nerdy voice actors get together and play Dungeons and Dragons. I wouldn't touch the game for another 5 years. During COVID, I had a little mini campaign, but then it got canceled after 2 sessions, classic. Other than that, didn't really touch it until actually my dad, of all people, mentioned to me about wanting to check out this animated series on Amazon Prime Video called The Legend of Vox Machina, which rang a bell about Critical Role's first campaign. I saw that season 2 was coming up, so naturally, of course, instead of sitting through hundreds and hundreds of hours of the original campaign on YouTube, I could easily just catch up with the 12 episodes that were already on Amazon. I watched the entire campaign on YouTube. Look, I wanted to see how they adapted a tabletop role-playing game into an animated series, so I watched the whole thing until I caught up to season 2, watched season 2, and then went back and finished the campaign afterwards. You're looking at the guy who caught up to One Piece. Like, this wasn't that bad. What I thought was funny is that you didn't even need to look down at the date in the description to see what year you were in. It just depended upon what jokes that the actors were making that you can kind of pinpoint what year, like on the internet, like those jokes were relevant, which I thought was kind of cool about the passage of time. I recommend just watching the animated series. It's actually quite good and it is perfect. I think one of the players mentioned that the YouTube campaign is just a really long director's cut, because the animated series actually does a really good job of just capturing the core components of the show. Like, the heart of the show is still the same.
We need to get inside that dragon.
Inside? We're a mouthful of acid, no way.
There is a way. The other way.
God.
And the characters are mostly still the same, and it's just kind of, they trimmed away a lot of the excess fat and a lot of good character moments too, but like nothing critical to the story, and just kept it nice and easily digestible like a filet mignon. And there are of course still plenty of scenes in the show that were ripped from the campaign line for line.
I'm gonna unload. That's natural 20.
There's Percy!
What the? We trusted you. You were our teacher. We would have done anything you asked. I put my gun in his mouth. And you betrayed us when we needed you most. You're the face I saw when murder entered my heart. This is your doing, and I pulled the trigger.
Twitch might be asking, Brayden, if there are plenty of clips on YouTube that just compare the show to the campaign line for line and the scenes that were actually from the show, why not just watch those instead? And my answer to that is that I've made my choice and I'm going to stick with it. It is too late now. But seriously, the campaign is really good, and I recommend that you watch it at some point, just whether or not it's in the background or in the forward focus. It was definitely a second monitor thing for me for a lot of the episodes. And there are a lot of funny moments that obviously aren't in the show, but in the campaign, the over-the-table like comments and like jabs and like one-liners and stuff that they do depending on the scene really adds to the flavor of the show and makes it a lot more funny.
Through space slowly, but you can do something here in this moment.
Holy shit.
As you think of what to do, I'm going to plug my computer in.
Lou is the physical manifestation of all of our emotions right now. He is being oppressed by this
all you gotta do is have red hair? I wish I had red hair.
Apart from being a really good storyteller, Matt Mercer is just excellent at world building. Instead of like the world kind of like revolving around the characters feel more a part of like this bigger ecosystem that is constantly moving, and it doesn't wait for them to make things happen. And so like this leads to a lot of like foreshadowing moments of like a party has a bad dice roll, or something happens, or they don't pay attention to something, and then later down the line that will bite them in the ass later. And I think that also leads to a lot of like really cool reveals and also a lot of really cool villains. And it seriously boggles my mind how D&D is just such a great like collaborative storytelling device, where the improv and the dice rolls can lead to such like phenomenally funny moments, and also like how clutch high rolls can like completely shift and change a story.
10.
That's half of a nat 20, all the way up to a nat 20.
And then of course there are the tragic ones that just leave everyone at the table just like sullen and just heartbroken.
Is anybody else here of like a high-pitched ringing?
Yes.
Okay, cool. No. What is it?
What, bad or good?
What is it?
I can't see it.
Natural 1.
Continuing to talk about Critical Role, my favorite character in the animated series is actually Keyleth, whereas in the campaign, my two favorite characters are probably Vex and Scanlan. I make this distinction because once again, the characters are like a little bit, like they're more streamlined in the animated series and in the campaign, and I feel like, you know, shout out to Marisha, she does an excellent job. I just feel like the Keyleth that we see in the animated series, she hadn't quite figured all of that out yet until like later in the campaign, particularly with the Chroma Conclave arc or like season 2 in the animated show. Vex and Scanlan in the campaign were like they're like one of the two of the more funnier characters. I used to really like Vax, and then Raven Queen stuff happens with Vax, and I really still liked his character, but it just got way too sad and I was tired of it. Whereas Scanlan and Vex I thought had really good character arcs, and you know, they were still like, when they had their moments on the table, it was still like really fun. And also, I want to shout out to Grog. Like, Travis Willingham plays Grog so well because Grog is supposed to be like this big behemoth, kind of like dumb warrior character, right? But there are moments in the campaign where he shows just such great emotional intelligence, and Travis just does an excellent job of like putting that out on the table. One more thing about Scanlan, Sam Riegel does an excellent job, and he's always very chaotic at the table, and I love that. And what's even more is that like Scanlan comes off as kind of this a deadbeat, like he's kind of a womanizer at the beginning, and he doesn't really take much seriously, and that's kind of how his character grows. And it is great because I will say that Sam is in the same way of like that he's a very like jovial guy, and that he like, you know, makes a lot of jokes, is true to his character. And
Named all of her creations after her favorite smells. There's a bunch of us. There was me. There was oatmeal. There was apple pie. There was pussy. There's a bunch of us.
Wow.
It's so nice to see other people having to hear this. It's really just bringing everything into sharp perspective.
This has been a day.
That took me a bit by surprise.
Stuff, but there are times where he just comes up with just clutch moments in combat. They're just out of nowhere, where like I had no idea like where he got the idea to do it, and it like it really just comes in clutch and saves people's lives.
Is going to cast with his last 7th level spell. Wow. A 7th level banishment spell.
I would like both Pike and Grog to make charisma saving throws, please.
Oh, but I counterspelled it at 8th level. Ooh. That's why I got closer, motherfucker.
I think that just goes to show like the heart and the care that the players and Matt Mercer put into this story, and just how every single character is like 3-dimensional and complex and has all these intricacies. And the animated series does a good job of showing that, but of course if you want to get the full picture, just because of all the small moments they have, not just big moments, but small moments too, they just do such an excellent job, and I encourage you to check out the campaign. Getting into D&D, so I kind of wanted to get into like how I got into D&D and how I think maybe you should get into D&D. And first off, I'm going to recommend The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime Video. Please go check that out. Really great show, even if you're not into D&D and you just like high fantasy. Really good. And I think that when it comes to D&D, there are 2 big learning curves that you kind of have to get over. The The first learning curve is the rules. The rules are really complicated. I still don't really get the idea of spell slots just yet, even though I've been playing the game for like almost a year now. And you just kind of realize that like even people who play this game professionally just have the rule book on them at all times, and the rules are just constantly changing. Not constantly changing, but you know, they get updates, they get patch notes. And so don't let the rules kind of like strangle you or prevent you from playing the game, and just kind of like learn the basics, okay? Learn how to build a character properly, and any friend that you have can help you with building a character, and you kind of understand the game that way. To help you with the rules, and a YouTube playlist that I found very helpful was Joe Cat's Crap Guide to D&D. Short, sweet videos talking about the different classes, talking about if you want to be a DM or not. Really helps you get into the game in a very funny and very quick to the point in an entertaining way. So be sure to go check out that playlist. But really, it's just a matter of like, you have online resources with you during the sessions. You can always look up a rule, and usually the DM, your DM, you can discuss like, hey, can I do this, or whatever. The DM will allow you to do whatever, because DMs usually have a lot of house rules, or they just like, oh, if something's cool, they're gonna let it happen. Usually, a good DM, if something's cool, they will like let you roll for it. So the second curve is roleplay cringe. I think there's like this weird stigmatism that I was kind of battling with. I still am a little bit on the romance section. But like there is a type of stigmatization that like role playing is like cringe and like nerdy and stuff. What helped me get over that was just the fact that like it's the same as acting. It's just one is in a friend's house playing a video, like playing a game, and the other one they're just getting paid multi-million dollars of they're getting paid a lot of money, okay? That's the only difference, all right? If you think roleplay is cringe, that means you think acting is cringe. So you're paying millions of dollars to people to be cringe, which, don't get me started on that, but you get the idea. Role-playing is not cringe, and in fact, you will enjoy the game so much more if everyone is just really into their character and is role-playing properly. So I also want to talk about D&D's kind of climb into the mainstream, almost in like the footsteps of what is happening with anime right now. We're starting to see D&D get mentioned more and more in the mainstream in like kind of a good light. First time I saw in the mainstream was Stranger Things, where they kind of based all of the enemies off of the D&D character, like D&D enemies, which I thought was like a cute little quirk thing that fit with the tone of that show. And even more so, you have the new D&D movie that has just come out, and all of the cast got to play a campaign together as their characters before they started shooting, like in pre-production. And the cast mentions how much the game was fun, how great it was, and like even some people mentioned Dimension 20 or Brendan Lee Mulligan, which you should go check out as well. Fantasy High is really, really funny that I'm watching right now. The players are all new to the game at the beginning of it as well, so you can kind of learn along with that, like sort of learn along with them with the rules of combat and such. And Brendan Lee Mulligan is just such a great DM. Yeah, you should seriously go check that out. And also with and Amazon just announced that like they're gonna get a Mighty 9 adaptation as well, which is Critical Role's second campaign. I'm just kind of thinking of like what this means, because I've always been the closest we've gotten to D&D, apart from like the old Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I have not seen, was Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, specifically Fellowship of the Ring, where it's like you have a quest, a group of parties get together, and they go do the thing. Like D&D just has such a capability of like producing really good story moments and a lot of collaborative creativity with what could happen, that I think that this is great that we are starting to get more and more D&D inspired media. And also just like, cause I love fantasy fuel, okay? Fuel me up. I love fantasy. I love high fantasy. I would love to see more of that in Hollywood and in theaters, just like across the board. So I'm really excited for D&D to kind of be getting more and more put into the mainstream. And I'm excited to see like where like it's taken with Amazon Prime Video and Hollywood Abroad. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. How did you like the D&D movie? Did you think it was cool? What's your favorite class? Like, or like, what's your favorite part of D&D or Critical Role or Vox Machina? Or even just like, what's your favorite, like, you know, like, what was one of your favorite campaign moments? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like button. And yeah, that's all I got.